Hey everybody, Tim Kawakami here, TK Show. Back from a little vacation, recording from the home studio as usual. And very glad to have on someone I just met when we just linked on. I should have gotten to know Zach before this. Somehow I haven't. And obviously spring training was in Arizona while I was up here. But they're playing real games now, Zach. I imagine you know that by now.
Yeah.
General manager of the San Francisco Giants is Zack Minasian. It's really great to have you on, Zach. Good to meet you.
Likewise.
We are recording this on the morning of the Giants' final game of the opening road trip. So we're not going to be talking about what happens there in the final game in Houston. But I imagine there's a pretty good vibe going on. You're feeling good. 4-1 start, all on the road. Home opener to coming up Friday, not tomorrow, Friday. Just what you're new one as a general manager, but you've certainly been with the team for a while. What does a 4-1 start mean to you? What does it mean to the team?
Yeah, I even try and look, it's all about winning games. So looking beyond that, as I try to look beyond that, I think coming into the year, we wanted to play good, clean baseball. We wanted to pitch well. And I think we've done that so far. And hopefully it sets a tone for what we're going to see throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, as a general manager, as someone obviously with Buster Posey and many other people put together this roster, what's maybe an under the radar or maybe over, whatever huge obvious thing that you can point to go, this is what we were trying to do. This is what we think is sustainable from the first 5 games.
Yeah, I think I go back to the starting pitching. I think we saw it in flashes with Robbie Ray last year. Webby obviously has been as consistent as they come. Jordan Hicks, we saw it in flashes. But also, as we talk about our young pitching a lot, we talked about that this offseason, the depth of it, and, fortunate to have Landon Roop going today, who pitched really well during the spring, and some depth beyond that. But, obviously you can't forget Justin Verlander as well. So those pitchers, I think that was something we really wanted that to be the foundation of this team is our starting pitching. So those guys going out and giving us a chance to win each and every game so far is really encouraging. And, I think it's probably not under the radar, but as we talk about having depth, we were really excited about someone like Gerard Encarnacion coming into spring training. He had a big spring. He gets hurt. And sure enough, here comes Wilmer. And the start that he's had has been great. Obviously, he's had a nice career, but another thing is he's just so popular in that clubhouse.
Yep.
And when you see players rally around a teammate like that, it's so great to see him get off to the start that he's gotten off to and just get some huge hits for us.
Yeah, it's like also say I was critical of his season last season. It was not a good season, but he did have a contract for this year. How much does the popularity? How much not popular? I mean, he means a lot to the clubhouse. Absolutely Willie Mack Award winner. We know what that is. You're someone who knows a clubhouse. We'll get into that later. You really do get a clubhouse.
Yeah.
What does having a veteran like that who maybe was borderline? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but could have not been on this roster. I'll just put it that way. How important? What kind of factor is that in? Like, let's bring him back because he's important.
It's probably the X factor. It's not something that we can quantify. It means something different probably to everybody. But I think when you're a part of a team and you're rooting for your teammates, what a powerful effect that can have. And he's just such a professional. He's so even keel and calm. I think he's got a really good way about him that rubs off on his teammates. And I think as you start having different types of leaders and different types of personalities, you can have a really healthy clubhouse. So, having Willie Adames with his personality, Wilmer with his, Matt Chapman with his, JV, Webby, all these guys, they're all completely different, but all very passionate about the game, very good teammates. And, how it equates to wins and losses, even given my time in the clubhouse, I can never really give you a great answer. It's more of a feeling that you have when you go down there and that sense of this group is in this thing together and they're rooting for each other.
When you were sitting in meetings with all your guys and with Buster and you're talking about, different players who've been with other organizations, how do you know about what that might fit like and how big of a role does it take when you're like, listen, you're paying Willie Adames a lot of money.
Yeah.
What part is the personality, the chemistry? How does that work into it?
It's going to be a discussion on every player. Any player we talk about acquiring, which, I kind of joke. I'll see a tweet or something about, a team having internal discussions about a player. And I kind of laugh because that's what we do.
Yep.
Some of it I don't even see as news, but when we do that, we're going to run down who is this person, what's the makeup like, what are they like in the clubhouse, and you're in the game long enough, you have contacts. We have a lot of people with this organization who have been around a long time, who have been other places. Somebody like Dusty Baker, for instance, I can pick up the phone and give him a call, and so many other people like that. So you really try to use, everyone you have and their experience around the game to try and get some of that information. And how does this fit in? How does this fit into our clubhouse? And fortunately, as we sit here today, it feels like a really good vibe with the collective group.
Buster's mentioned this. I've talked to him about it, that, the importance of posting. We know Adam plays every game. Now, injuries, you can't avoid it. No, we know all that there's another, but just guys who show up, Webb, like Logan is going to try to throw 33 starts every year, go into the 8th and whatever. Does that come up all the time, I assume, in your conversation?
Yeah. I mean, it's come up more and more. One, I do think it means something from a team building standpoint on how much can we rely on this player. Two, I think it means something to their teammates, and that someone's going to go out there and give everything they've got for as many games as they're in the lineup. And those are big things. But something we've talked about as well is it means something to our fan base, and that's not something we're going to take lightly. We want them to be able to come here and know that, our third baseman he's going to be in the lineup today, and he's going to be here for the next 5 years, so 6 years. So I think those things are really important, and fortunately, we have the personalities. Chappie loves to play. Adamas loves to play. Jung-Hoo likes to play. And I think some of it is just trying to protect them from themselves in some cases too. I don't know if we're necessarily going to get into the load management business here like they do in the NBA.
No,
but we want our guys out there. We want them out there, and gives us the best chance to win. Buster's talked about this. We want to give an entertaining product to our fans, and so having our best players out there every day is really important.
I'm going to ask you about Buster, of course. You were not a name that popped out early as the general manager. And Buster himself said he did not really have you on that front list.
Yeah.
What was your first interaction like with Buster? And when did you get a sense, okay, wait a minute, this works. Like, our relationship really could be a good thing together.
So I joined the organization after the 2018 season, and just very small interactions with Buster in 19 and 21, and then even beyond that as you join the ownership group. Very brief. I don't even know if we ever had a conversation as much as hi and bye. So really didn't know each other well at all coming into the process, more so knew of each other. And we had first met, I think he was on the job probably 3 or 4 days, and we met to talk about scouting. And I remember leaving the meeting just being surprised with how comfortable it felt. I think it was supposed to be an hour, and it turned into 2. And it was myself, Jeremy Shelley, and John Barr, who drafted Buster, still very much a part of the organization. And I'm very comfortable with John and Jeremy. I've worked with them, known them for a long time. So I just thought it was a really comfortable conversation. And we had a couple more, Buster and I, and it just seemed to flow really, really easily. And I just got a call from him. I don't know, he's probably 2 weeks on the job, and he had mentioned he was going to start interviewing GM candidates. And I actually thought he was going to ask me if I had recommendations for people that
I got one. I can think of one.
And so he asked me at that point if I would be interested. And
we had a little cutout there.
Being here, being with the Giants meant the world to me, and whatever role he felt I could be in to help him, I was all in. And so certainly didn't think, oh yeah, I'm gonna be the GM. But I would say after our first official interview, I felt pretty good about this thing may work out. And even if it doesn't, I feel like I'm in a good position with the boss. So yeah, I would say the whole process from start to finish, him mentioning the position to me actually getting the position, was about a month.
What's the relationship then? Like, it's you going through the agent roles, that kind of thing. I was laughing. I'm not just like when you have the Zoom call to announce Verlander, and then someone asks about Roki Sasaki. He goes, I think Zach has an update with that, and then you have to be the one who says we're out of it.
Yeah.
What's the kind of dynamic between you two guys?
I mean, it's very organic. I mean, it isn't, hey, you take all the agents, I take all the teams. I think early on for Buster, he's still trying to get a feel for some of the executives around the league, some of the agents around the league. Jeremy's a big part of everything we do at this level on a daily basis. So, it's kind of, we handle things as they come up, and it's worked really well. Maybe there's going to be some things that he has me gravitate to more as we do this longer, whether that's agents or teams, but for the most part, whether it's been a contract negotiation, I don't think he talked to JV's agent at all, but he talked to JV. On Adames, I probably did the bulk of the conversations, and then Buster came in and kind of closed it out. So it's been great working with them, and we haven't really set any kind of defined parameters as to these are your responsibilities and these are my responsibilities, and we've just really worked together on everything, which for me has been awesome.
Saw you at least at the opener in Cincinnati. You're sitting there together in the suite. What's he like watching a game? What is he tense? Is he talkative?
He'll talk, but it's you feel like you're watching him play.
Mm-hmm.
Calm, cool, collected, with this intense fire that's burning inside, and you'll get glimpses of it over the course of the game. And he when Wilmer hit that ball right off the bat, he pretty much just grabbed me right away, and it was a pretty cool moment. But yeah, it's very much like watching him play, where he's intense, but he does a really good job of controlling it. And it's an easy person to watch a game with.
Yep. I always want to ask guys about this. Your job previous was what you basically ran the pro personnel or pro scouting.
Yeah.
So you're not going to games, right? You got scouts going to games. So what are you doing? And I imagine it gives you a nice leg up when you're going through off season. You've seen these players, you've read the reports. Just give me an idea of what that job is and how that kind of, informs you taking the GM job.
Yeah. So, I mean, the easiest way I would describe it was, I think in that role, you get to play GM for the other 29 clubs. Because as you're doing some strategic planning, whether it's free agency, whether it's the trade deadline, whether we're a quote unquote buyer or seller, you're still looking at each organization. What are they trying to do? If they're trying to acquire major league players, who from their system would they trade? How does that affect us? If they have a major league player that they're trying to trade, does that player fit us? If they do, what are we willing to give up? What other teams would have interest? What are they willing to give up? How do we match up there? And then even beyond that, you're kind of evaluating how these teams make decisions on players. So, another team may value exit velo. Another team may value shapes as per TrackMan. Another team may value control command type scores. So you're really trying to get a sense of kind of all encompassing, what are these other 29 organizations trying to do? What are their philosophies? And you try and put yourself in their shoes really at every turn. So, beyond that, you're forced to get to know a lot of players. So that's certainly helpful. But also, when we talk about modeling, a lot of times you'll hear someone say, oh, you should be like this team or that team. And the thing about pro scouting and that role that was interesting to me was I felt like you might not model yourself after an entire organization, but there might be bits and pieces of different organizations that you can pick out that you like. So I might be evaluating an organization and feel like, wow, they've done really well in the international amateur space. So it's how are they set up? Who's making the decisions? Have a sense of what's their process. And you can start to piece things together that way. And, I do think it can prepare you very well for this role.
Okay, without giving up any state secrets, generally, what's then the Giants' profile? Like, are you power? Not necessarily power pitching in this, but if you can just give me, we know, pitching, situational hitting, guys who play, leadership. Is it something beyond that?
Yeah, I think what our philosophy has been in the past has surely been discussed a lot. Farhan brought me in here in 2019, forever grateful, a lot of respect, learned so much. And, some of the kind of philosophy that we had at that point was basically winning the strike zone, both on the mound and at the plate. And, a lot of those things, are industry wide. Yeah. It's not that we have changes and now we don't want to win the strike zone. There may be some subtle differences that I think we as an organization, our fan base, start to see as the season goes on. I mean, we've stolen more bases at this point in the year. Now, some of that's the personnel as well, and not necessarily a philosophical thing. So, I think in a sense, it's still evolving. But generally, Buster's talked about guys who post. We've talked about positional players who can win on both sides of the ball. Pitchers who are going to be aggressive and attack the strike zone. So there are some similarities, as changes have happened here philosophically. But it's still something we're going to get a feel for. And as our personnel here continues to mature and kind of see where it goes.
Situational hitting. I mean, some of it is like just hit better, right? I mean, Wilmer, get that single. Like we needed that. You get. Is there a cascading kind of idea? Pat Burrell's talked about it.
Yeah,
that is tangible for like fans or viewers. Like this is what they're doing differently.
So, well, I like the phrase, and Pat has said this, kind of playing to the scoreboard. Mm-hmm. So, look, we're down 4-0. A pinch hitter comes into the game. He's facing a pitcher the first time he's ever seen him. Probably shouldn't swing at the first pitch. Like, this is the scoreboard. We're down 4 runs. Why don't you see a pitch? Get a sense of who this pitcher is. We need base runners. And if it is a swing, look, we can't hit a 4-run we can't hit a grand slam with nobody on base. So I think as we talk about our team offensively, it's a little bit more of, hey, let's play the scoreboard a little bit. And I think we've seen that so far. Tyler Fitzgerald's laid down a couple of bunts. We've had a couple of stolen bases, kind of key stolen bases. So things like that, whereas, I think as an industry, so much has been made of the exit velo, homers. And don't get me wrong, like we want homers. I'd love for us to hit homers, but I think Pat and Buster and Bomel and the group have all kind of called out there's got to be more to our offensive game than just that, because obviously we play in a pitcher's friendly ballpark.
Get to see the 5th starter today. We'll probably be listening to this after. You've got some young guys though in AAA. I've been hearing that they've been throwing really well. What do you do when you've got the start? I mean, it's a terrible problem to have. I know, too many starters. My God, what do you do? But is there some antsy? Like Kyle Harrison was a guy who has been in this rotation. If he's throwing well, I mean, are you going to try to find a space for some of these guys at some point to pitch in the majors?
Yeah, I think, I had a mentor tell me, if you just watch the player long enough, they'll tell you who they are. And, I think with all of this, it's just letting guys go out there and perform, and then letting the performance dictate, the decisions that we make and really difficult calls, not only sending Kyle out, but Sean Jelly, Tristan Beck. These are pitchers, all have shown success at the major league level, all will have long careers, all have upside. I think, Kyle in particular being a left-handed starter, just enormous upside. But with where we're at and fortunate to have built the pitching depth that we have, hopefully they can take it in stride and continue to get better. And look, if we don't need those guys, I'd be shocked. Yeah. And some of it's just what we go through and the attrition that we deal with pitchers in this game. So, but I would not say that I feel antsy at all. And like you said, it's a great problem to have. Randy, Wynn, Kyle Haynes do a great job running PD. Brundy, Q, our group in AAA have a really good plan for how we want to continue to work these guys, make sure they're continuing to develop, they're getting work in, they're ready for when we need them. So we feel we're in a good spot, and those pitchers are in a good spot. And we have to recognize it can't be easy for those guys, and have a little grace, give them some grace, but also just continue to challenge them. And I want them to make it as hard on us as possible.
When does a small sample size turn into an actual measurable sample size? And I'm going to start a little bit of the negative. Lamont Wade is 0 for 16, right? When do you start? Is it 20 games? Is it 100 plate appearances? Like, when can you really start getting a handle on what the way this season or this individual season is going?
Yeah, it would be interesting. I mean, if I were to ask our VP of analytics, Paul Bien, is about 10 feet away from the office over here. I think he would say a sample size starts to become legit closer to 100 plate appearances. Mm-hmm. Now I think there's the devil's in the details there, and there might be some decisions that you can make, in shorter sample sizes. And I think when it comes to the roster and the lineup, obviously, we'll have an opinion as a front office, but Bomel's been doing this a long time, and we're only 5 games in, but we've played well, and Lamont has a history of getting on base and being a quality offensive player. So for the most part, it's something that in Buster's position, my position, we can go to Bomel and just the lineup in general, it's his call and where he feels comfortable. So, but I surely don't think 5 games are a big enough sample size. And it's why I hesitate a little bit to get too pumped about, where we're at. But I think the things that we called out heading into this season have held so far, and hopefully they can keep holding.
I want to get a little bit into your background. Your father, a legendary clubhouse attendant, and you and your brother worked in the clubhouse or Rangers clubhouse. Like, what do you think you have a feel for by doing that? By in the family too? Obviously, Tommy Lasorda very close. Guy I covered, and Giants fans might not love him, but the guy was a really entertaining, charming guy.
Yeah.
At times, maybe he wasn't.
Yes, I get it.
What was that relation? What does that background mean to you now as a general manager?
It's difficult. It's difficult to state it. And it means the world to me. And I think it just gave me a foundation, maybe even beyond the knowledge of when do you squeeze or when do you double seal or when do you make this trade. But it just grew this intense passion for baseball. I love baseball. My brothers love baseball. Even my oldest brother, who's a lawyer, loves baseball, and it's done so much for my family. And in that sense, that's where, for me, it goes back to the people you work with. I grew up working with my brothers, and that's kind of how I work here in the office. And I bring that every day. Being in that clubhouse, you're a part of a team. And I view, the front office as our team up here. And I think it's important that we have close relationships and we can be honest with each other. So it goes beyond baseball. There's definitely the evaluating players and things like that. You have those conversations with players when you're in the clubhouse. You have it with managers and coaches and executives. But just the environment of being a part of a team and what that means, having some feel for situations and some sense of what drives people. To me, that's huge. It's something I try to bring to the office every day. And, how big of a difference it makes, you'd probably have to ask my teammates here in the front office, but I hope it's significant.
You got any good like Nolan Ryan stories from the Rangers days?
Oh yeah. We were training in Port Charlotte, Florida, and there was this kind of metal staircase that went up to the front office, and Nolan would have been in his, I don't know, mid 40s, early 40s at the time. And I just remember him running this staircase all day long, all day, every day. And I was old enough to know, like, yeah, he's older than all these players, and I see him working like this. And it was pretty incredible. And I actually told JV that when he was here for his physical. We were talking about Nolan. And the other one I remember, which I don't think we would ever see this, we probably won't see this ever again in the professional sport, is in spring training, if Nolan had a slow day, he would have my dad set up a table with a big sign that says Nolan Ryan will sign autographs today. Mm-hmm. And fans would just line up and he would sign their autograph. And he would just sit there all day. And my brother Perry bat-boyed his 6th no-hitter, which I was at the Coliseum. But just a tremendous player, tremendous person. Got to know his boys relatively well at the time, and just a great family, and something that it sticks in my mind. And I think being in that clubhouse and seeing how hard these players work is just how important work ethic is, and Nolan was second to none.
You mentioned Perry. Obviously, I won't try not to ask you the cliche question about the general manager of the Los Angeles Angels, but
yeah,
have you had trade talks? I'll just say, like, have you had like, hey, let's see if there's a trade here, or could you imagine one happening?
Oh, I don't know if I can imagine one happening, but we've definitely had the talks. Mm-hmm. So I think just part of this job is checking in with every team and just seeing where you match up and how you match up. And as I've talked to him, we see things a little differently when it comes to trade discussions this past off season. But you never know. I come from a school of trying to make trades that really make sense for both sides. And, if we could ever make a deal that helps the Giants and helps the Angels at the same time, that would be fantastic. And I'd love to do that. So, but it is nice having the conversations with him because we're very direct, and either we know right away, yeah, there's a chance to get something done, or there isn't.
I do just the torpedo bat issue is out there. It is fascinating that this has not, like you said, like, why didn't they think of this before, at least to try it? I know it's a player thing with their bat supplier and all, but you're looking at technology, I'm sure. I mean, you're looking around. Do you present, have you noted this like previously that this is an option out there?
Yeah, not particularly the torpedo bat, but we, as an organization, and I think probably as an industry, a lot of bat fitting conversations have happened for years, probably even dating back, 4 or 5 years, as it's become more and more in vogue as far as what type of swing should be using what type of bat. And, my history working in the clubhouse and being a bat boy for a long time was, the bat room was kind of mine. Mm-hmm. And so you definitely got a sense of, the C271 was Ken Griffey Jr. Like that was the Ken Griffey Jr. model that he designed. And there was a C243 and there was a P72. So there's all different bat types. So it doesn't surprise me. I think there's always going to be evolution in the game and, with the equipment and, as things become more and more available, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of players who will try it out.
As a bat expert now, I'm going to ask this. Isn't it possible that lowering the middle of the bat or increasing the barrel, whatever, makes the bat not as, you can't swing it as fast? Wouldn't that be possible?
I would think so, and I think some of this too, you probably know this, Tim, you've seen the cupped bats where at the very end of it, there's a little indent that takes out some of the weight. It's similar to that, but it's probably moving the weight even further down to the handle. And I guess the way I look at it is you still have to square the ball up wherever the barrel is, whether it's closer to your handle or not. So, and yeah, I would think the more weight closer to your hands, maybe the slower your bat speed. But yeah, and it's fascinating to see how much attention it's caught, and I'm sure we're going to see more and more players, trying it out.
I'm glad you said that though, because it's just, I've seen all this reporting. I understand it, but like There's a reason why the bats are shaped like that, right? I mean, initially, like you want to get as fast as you. They've thinned the handles in order to increase the speed because you want the bulk of the bat at the end because that becomes the lever. Anyway, this is one of my things. I just see this. I go, how come no one's bringing this up? Thank you, Zack Minasian, for nothing else, for not throwing that one out. I'll end this with a version of a question I ask all my guests. Can't wait to hear your answer because I don't really know you, and I'm really glad to get to know you. I'm really glad to ask kind of a question off the wall here. But we're coming out of this where restaurants weren't, really people weren't going to. I don't know how many restaurants you go to. I'll ask you though, Zack Minasian, what's your favorite restaurant right now?
I have a lot of them here in San Francisco. I live in Telegraph Hill, just above Little Italy, and I mean on any given day, I love going out to eat. My wife tries to put the shackles on me a little bit since it's okay for us to have a dinner at home every once in a while, but geez, it's tough if I have to pick one spot.
Could be a couple.
Yeah. So I mean, the spots that we go to a lot: Original Joe's, North Beach Restaurant, Tony's, and then there's a little Japanese place off the corner of Washington Square. And this is when I moved here and I was here by myself and didn't know a soul in the city. Norin Izakaya, little Japanese place right off Washington Square. And I remember I would walk home from the ballpark 7, 8 at night on an off day. And I just walked straight to Norin Izakaya and it's fantastic. So, all skewered meals, Japanese style. And I loved it, but so many great restaurants in North Beach. But I would say that handful is probably our go-to spots.
I'm glad I asked you the question. I sensed that you might be a restaurant guy. I did not know that. Sometimes I ask guests beforehand what kind of question they want on this one, just to make sure I'm not startling them. And you said you surprised you, and I decided to pick restaurant because I sensed you might have some good recommendations, and I'm glad I asked you. Zack, listen, it was great talking to you. It was great to meet you. I will see you Friday, I hope. I will see you throughout the season. Again, that's my fault for not introducing myself to you before, but I'm talking to you now, Zack Minasian.
That's right.
Really good to have you on the show. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. That's a show for today. Thank you.